Hi everybody, it's Kim from Patriot Garden, and we're sitting here today next to my empty chicken tractor to talk about probably the most difficult part of raising chickens for meat, and that is the butchering process. Probably the question that I get asked most by people when they find out that I raise chickens for meat is, how do you do it? How do you take a chick, that cute little fluff ball, raise it to 12 weeks, and then dispatch and put it in your freezer? How can you do that? Well, I think that although there's always a little bit of uneasiness the morning that I'm loading the chickens into the car for the drive to the butcher, I'm also very grateful for the ability to raise food that I know has been raised humanely, fed well, fed a diet that I am happy to put into my body at the end of the process. And also that I know I am connected to the food that I'm eating. My goal in being a homesteader, my goal in growing food and growing chickens for meat and eggs is to bring my food circle closer, to become more self-sustainable. I really have developed an appreciation for the sacrifice that animals make to feed our bodies. You know, when you go to a restaurant and you order a steak, you never think about the cow. When you go to the grocery store and you buy a chicken, you don't often think about that animal as being alive. You have not seen the process from beginning to end. And I not only have a deeper appreciation for the sacrifice that the animal makes, but I also am grateful for the food that's on my table in a way that I wasn't when I just went to the grocery store. The first few times that I did this, I would drop off live chickens squawking and making noise, and I would pick up basically Purdue. But this past butchering, I actually was a witness to the whole process, and although it wasn't easy to watch the whole thing, I had watched enough YouTube videos where I was prepared for what was going to happen. So today what I'd like to do is go through the process of choosing a butcher, what butchering looks like, because I think it'll help you make a decision on whether you really want to try to do this. I think back in April, I made a video about caring for your young chicks. And then I made another video halfway through their life. And this past weekend, they were 12 weeks old, and we butchered them. I put 65 pounds of chicken in my freezer. That was 10 chickens. The least of them weighed about 5.9. The biggest of them was over 7 pounds. And I was satisfied at the end that I had done everything to keep them in a humane way and to dispatch them in a humane way. Finding a butcher was not all that difficult. On Facebook, I belong to a number of communities of people that raise chickens in their backyards, and just putting out a call for a butcher created a whole bunch of responses of people that not only do them on a large scale, but others that do them on a small scale. I was super lucky the first time to find somebody that was willing to do the chickens for me on a small scale, and that didn't quite work out. So I actually brought them to a commercial butcher called a halal butcher. Now, they are very regulated by the state here in Connecticut, and I would imagine in your state they would also be very regulated. They did butchering of large and small animals. It was a very clean setup, and it was very highly recommended by people on those Facebook communities. This past time, I had to find a friend to butcher them. Now, this person butchered my chickens in the backyard, and I was a witness to the whole process. So I thought without pictures, I would just give you a rundown of what happens and how chickens are butchered. If you really want to see the process, I will include a link to a couple of the videos that I watched before I made the decision to do this on my homestead. I happen to be a very religious person, so it was not only sad, but it was slightly a spiritual experience to give a prayer of thanks for the sacrifice that the animals were making as my friend dispatched them with a very humane process. The birds are put upside down in something called a killing cone, which kind of cradles their body, and when they're upside down, the blood rushes down to their head and kind of almost puts them in a trance or a very calm state. So right away you're starting the process without putting too much stress on the bird. I'm not going to go into the details of the actual killing of the bird, but once the bird is dispatched, now it's time for plucking. My previous butcher had an electric plucker. It almost looks like a washing machine with all these little rubber fingers, and as soon as the bird is scalded, which is dipped in water that's between 130 and 170 degrees to release the feathers from the body, the bird is then put into this plucker and it tosses it around, and within seconds the bird is plucked clean. The butcher that I used this time did that process by hand, and it was pretty amazing to watch. It wasn't really a plucking motion, it was more of a rubbing motion, and in minutes he had this bird completely clean. The next process is called evisceration. Now, when you bring your bird to the butcher, they should ask you if you want to keep your organ meats, the chicken feet or head, and the neck bone. I choose to keep just the organ meats and the neck bones. A responsible butcher will have a responsible way of disposing of those parts. The next thing after the evisceration is the body temperature has to be brought down. So the next thing you'll need is a big pot of ice water so that you can dip your bird into ice water, let it soak for a while, and reduce that body temperature. You don't want to leave any room for bad bacteria to have a good place to start growing. At that point, the birds are ready for you to take home. I have had butchers that have offered to shrink wrap it for me. I have done the shrink wrapping myself. I'll put a video down below as well. One more important step is letting that carcass rest for 24 to 48 hours. Now, animals are going to go through rigor mortis just like any body will. You certainly don't want to eat an animal that's in the stage of rigor. You want to be able to give it time to relax. So putting your birds in a plastic bag and in the refrigerator for 24 to 48 hours before you freeze or cook them is always a good idea. Now, this chicken tractor is about to be used again because I just brought home 10 new chicks that will be processed and butchered in early October. They right now are living in the garage. I'll give you a quick peek of them before we leave the video today. These little guys already have some of their feathers, and I'm figuring in about a week they'll be ready to come out here to the chicken tractor. This might not be the thing for you. Raising your own chickens for meat is a big decision, and I encourage you to look at more videos and come to that decision on your own. It's very rewarding. There's nothing like eating a chicken that you raised yourself. They are absolutely delicious, and it really is a great step towards self-sustainability. Okay, I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, please hit that subscribe button and the like button. Leave any questions or comments you have for me, and I'll see you next time. Happy gardening, everybody.